Joe Anderson, you've come out once again to Brussels to lobby Merseyside's case here in Europe. First of all, how far short are these numbers for Merseyside that came out recently from the government?
Well, the announcement and the way the government are funding areas means that Liverpool will lose out. The Merseyside region, Liverpool region, will lose out approximately about 110 million euros thereabouts, and we think it's just totally unfair and unjust to the way the government have actually allocated the funding. But that's the amount, roughly about 110 million euros.
Nonetheless, the government have suggested Liverpool City region could get, I think, 220 odd million euros, so about 200 million pounds. Big money then still for Liverpool. Not enough for you?
Well, it's not enough in the way that it's been allocated. Quite simply, there are probably around 11 areas, what we call local enterprise partnerships around the country that are hugely better off in terms of GDP. Liverpool, the region of Liverpool, is about 94% GDP. Some of these areas are up to 134, 136% GDP. So they're better off than Liverpool. So the argument about European funding and the transitional arrangements are being, if you like, gerrymandered by this government, and it's absolutely a flawed process. And that was the case that we put to the Commissioner, Commissioner Hahn, today, and he's concerned to hear what we're saying. They are continuing the negotiations with government. Governments indeed have actually allocated funding out or said what areas are going to get, and if the European Union here hasn't even signed it off yet. So they're actually jumping ahead of themselves, the government. But he understands where we're coming from, he understands our concerns, and he understands the unfairness of it, and that's the case that we wanted to present to him. So he's going to listen to that. We're going to give him some more information on how it impacts not only on Liverpool but Wirral, Sefton, the city region, and I'm sure that he will then take this up with the UK government.
Before you came here today, did you think that those government figures were pretty much a done deal? Mm-hmm. And what have you therefore learned from today's meeting with Commissioner Hahn?
Well, it's not a done deal. That's the point. UK government are saying is our allocation on how we work it out. But what we've clearly got a picture of today is that what governments have to do is provide the details of how they're going to break down this funding, and then the European Union have to sign that off, and they won't sign it off unless they're satisfied. And that's why it was important for us to come here today to present our case about the unfairness of the position that we find ourselves in Merseyside. There are areas that are far better off, and they will benefit as a result of the way the formula from central government has been distributed. So we're not happy with that. We think it's unfair and unjust, and the Commissioner, as I said, was sympathetic to that view and has promised me, he's given me an undertaking that he's going to review that when the negotiations take place between September and November.
Two final questions. One is, just how important is this money to Merseyside? Why do you need it? What kind of projects is it used for?
Well, it's absolutely vital, especially when you look at the funding cuts from central government. If we are to rebalance the economy and get ourselves, up to the level of London and the south, the southeast, southwest, then clearly we've got to have that support and that funding. And as government, central government, cut away funding from Merseyside in particular, then we've got to argue that case that it's got to be made up from other sources, and that's why it's important that we make the case and we win that case.
And just finally, making that case, that's exactly what I want to ask you just finally, is how convinced are you that you can still win this argument at this presumably fairly late stage?
Well, there's a lot of things that we can do. Come here and lobby and make the case and show the details and the facts. And I think the Commissioner was impressed with what we had to say and the figures that we gave him. But, we're not ruling out, and I'm certainly not ruling out, a legal challenge, a judicial review of this allocation, because I believe it's been gerrymandered by the government. It's been given across 39 LEPs across the whole country. They've also give extra money to Northern Ireland, to Wales and the Scottish Assembly, and I think that's a political sop. But I don't mind them doing that, but not at the disadvantage of Merseyside and other regions. It has to be distributed on a fair basis. That's what the European funding is about. It's about trying to help the poorest regions to become better off and to participate economically. And that's where it's flawed, and that's what the Commissioner, is sympathetic to our view on that and has promised me we'll look at it.
You said you'd consider legal action there in that final answer. Then I'd just like to ask you, at what stage would you pursue that? How far are you going to follow this up before you might have to take the legal angle?
Well, we'll certainly be telling government how we're going to make progress on this. We'll, of course, give them information about our meeting today, as I'm sure will the Commissioner. He's writing to UK government to say that and set out what he believes should happen with the funding. And I believe when we receive that notification and that letter, then we can seek some legal advice on whether we can make that challenge. But I won't rule it out because it's something that we may well do, and we may well join with a few other areas that have actually been similarly poorly treated. But the bottom line for me is that I think a judicial review will highlight exactly the failures of the distribution of the funding formula, and it's something that we need to do because we need to make that case to the European Union, but also to our government to say we're not going to let you get away with it. What I've said is this is just Liverpool City region, the Merseyside area, being mugged by central government to distribute it in a way that helps them politically, and I'm not going to put up with that.